Now, the kingdom of Makuria was located what is north of modern-day Sudan in northern Egypt, southern Egypt, I'm sorry. The city came into power at the decline of the Aksumite Empire, which dominated the area from 550 AD to 950 AD. The origins of that city, like many other East African nations, their stories are unknown or lost. Birthed from the Nile River into a period of independence. The city's capital was Dongola, and the kingdom's name was interchanged with the Kingdom of Dongola, depending on who writes the book. At the end of the 6th century, Makuria, along with neighboring cities, were converted to Christianity by missionaries. As a result, the Islamic nations became hostile. Here we go. To their Nubian neighbors who still held their traditional African spiritual system. So we have, even though for centuries, everybody was one family, everybody was the same, be it Egyptian, Sudanese, or Ethiopian, but division came into the family because of different ideologies and creeds. So, in 641 AD, the Arabs besieged Egypt, and the war moved south towards Nubia. Here it comes. Egypt and Makuria developed very close relations when the Fatimids populated Egypt. Fatimid Caliphate was an Arab Shia dynasty that ruled over many areas of North Africa and Yemen. Remember, once Rome fell, other groups such as the Arabs and many others came into Northern Africa. So Egypt was more than glad to take off one yoke, and they added another. So their reign was from 909 AD to 1171, when they were defeated by Saladin and the Ayyubids. Fatimids were the fourth and final Arab caliphate. They exercised tolerance with other religions, which was frowned upon by most Islamic fundamentalists at the time, including Saladin. They had an accord with local Jews, Maltese Christians, and Coptic Christians, including the people of Sudan. The Fatimids controlled the Red Sea and the Mediterranean by promoting traders to trade goods without their permission. This would put a stranglehold on small tribes, small ethnic groups, but would prove no match to larger and more aggressive groups. Now, before the First Crusade, long before the First Crusade, the Battle of Dongola became a decisive fight between the Islamic nations of Egypt and Sudan. Nations that centuries before were united because of their origin from the mountains of the moon, are now divided because of the ideologies and creeds of foreigners. This event in East African history specifically, as well as the Makurian history in general, was the Battle of Dongola because it paved the way to the independence which modern Ethiopia enjoyed until the death of Emperor Haile Selassie I. It showed the world that East Africa was a military might with which to be reckoned. The war became a stalemate between two powers, the Egyptians and the Nubians, driving the need to propose a ceasefire. As a result of this great battle, the Bach Treaty of 651 AD was written. This was a pact made by the Egyptians and the Sudanese, the Makurians and the rulers of Egypt. Now, according to some scholars, this was the longest treaty ever constructed, lasting about 700 years. There's no original signed copy of the document, but some of the details consisted of the Arabs would not attack Nubia, and the Nubians would attack Egypt. Citizens of the two nations would be allowed to freely trade and travel between the two states and would be guaranteed safe passage while in the other nation. Immigration to and settlement in other nations was forbidden. Fugitives would be extradited. Nubians were responsible for maintaining mosques for Muslim visitors and so on. The Egyptians had no obligation to protect Nubians from attacks by third parties. So it kind of sounded one-sided to me. Now, the most important factor of this extortion or treaty was the yearly importation of slaves to Egypt. So now we're starting to see a little bit of the Arab slave trade. Mhm. Only the best prisoners of war were sent to Egypt. None of the elderly, no children, but most male and female. Almost every year there was about 300, over 300 Africans were sent from Nubia to Egypt. Now, in spite of the buyer's demands, the agreements of the treaty were peaceful until the end of the 700 years, when the king of Makuria decided to challenge the powers that be. Under its regulations, cities such as Makuria began to thrive. They would annex neighboring Nabatea, and became a viable and prosperous nation from 750 to 1150 AD. The people of Makuria became literate, and their own alphabet was a mixture of Greek, Coptic, and Nubian. In the earlier times of the dynasty, trades between Egypt and Nubia was frequent. Makuria exported ivory, cattle, ostrich feathers, and people. The Ayyubids invaded Fatimids in Egypt, and Makuria intervened. By them intervening, it broke that treaty. The city of Alodia, or Arwa, was the southernmost city of Sudan, and it was centered south of the Great Bend of the Nile River. Now, due to the history and lack of excavation, we don't know what happened to this city. According to scholars, the first reference to the city began during the reign of these individuals in Morocco. And the fall and decline of Makuria happened in the city of Alodia. Yeah. In 1173, Shah was particularly successful. He was a leader. He was successful in a campaign. He was able to penetrate Nubia from Egypt, and he captured Ibrahim, the leader of the rebellion. Since Egypt was still at war with European nations in the Crusades, they thought it was necessary to capitalize on the wealth of their southern neighbors. Not to mention, what they was trying to do was surround Jerusalem by going south and circling around. In the book by Davidson, Lost Cities of Africa, they cited the seaports that were in operation during the medieval period and how it would be advantageous to whoever possessed it. Trading posts were located in Kilwa, Kiswahili, Shango, Manra, and Sunjwe. African ivory was in great demand, sold by the Zanj people, sent by ship to China and India. So they wanted to cut that off. According to Davidson, China's kings and rulers sat in chairs of ivory as a symbol of power and prestige. The Sung Annals, 1049 to 1053 AD, gave annual report of gold, ivory, rhinoceros horns, pearls, incense, and other goods amounted to more than 53,000 units of count. So East Africa was trading globally while Europe and the Arabs were fighting. And at the dawn of the Crusade, however, the number it jumped. They thrived, 53,000 to 500,000, showing India and East Africa's greatest patron. East Africa received silk and porcelain and brocade. Now, once Turan Shah defeated the Nubians, his plan was to target Ethiopia's city ports such as Massawa, Tanzania, Kenya, and Tanzania. Massawa at this time was one of the largest ports, and it was located at the Red Sea, the coast of Eritrea. Because of its ideal location pointing eastward, Islamic forces in the ancient times and medieval period wanted to take this particular port. Now, Basil said they exported tools and weapons of iron that were made at Musa on the Red Sea coast. Scholars proved that East Africans received goods from China, porcelain dated in the early Ming Dynasty. It can be concluded that Egypt wanted the seaports for economic reasons. And at the end of the 12th century, the Fatimids of Egypt and Makuria developed a prosperous relationship, trading freely across the borders. Fatimids' political system of merit would soon be their undoing in a world laced with hierarchy and tradition. The tolerating relationship with the Copts and the Jews was too unnerving to Saladin. In 1169, the Ayyubids besieged Egypt. By 1171, the Ayyubids came to power and pushed the Fatimids out. As a result, the Nubians retaliated, and fighting ensued.